I mean, it's no Morbius, but it was pretty damn good. Imagine, have you seen the original Top Gun, either Mark or Garrett?
Not in a long, long time.
Right. But you kind of remember 80s action movies, right? Where everything is extremely, taken seriously with great reverence, and, the score swells up in the emotional moments, and there's lots of like long shots of people reacting and acting their asses off, and everything's done not, I would say, in a cheesy way, but with a complete straight face the whole time.
A complete conviction to what they're trying to do.
100%. And Top Gun Maverick is exactly that. It is the most dudes rock movie of 2022. And were anything to beat the dudes rockness of this movie, I would be entirely shocked, because it's just everything that I wanted it to be. Tom Cruise, Maverick, Captain Mitchell, he's still the same guy. You start off with a long shot of him with some sort of spanner inside an airplane cranking something. Pretty sure that like fighter jets and modern fighter jets don't require guys with giant massive spanners cranking away stuff inside like it was a Spitfire or something, but still that's what was happening. And he gets called in to do this test, this high-speed flight test, and of course, the Admiral is going to shut it down. No, Tom Cruise, we can't be doing this, it's too extreme. We need drones now. You're a man out of time, Tom Cruise. And he spends the whole rest of the movie proving that he is not a man out of time. He gets brought in to train up some youngsters, and I was nearly off the movie at the point where he's training these youngsters, and he is clearly a better pilot than all of them, despite the fact that these are the top, as is quoted in the movie, 1% of the 1% of pilots. They are the best, without question. And Tom Cruise is so much better than all of them. And I'm like,
be better than Tom Cruise.
Well, this is the thing. And I'm like, well, this is dumb. Why do they simply not have Tom Cruise fly the plane in the mission that they want him to do, because he is the best version of Tom Cruise? And you know what they do? They go, oh yeah, we've been setting this up all movie, telling you that Tom Cruise is the best pilot, and here he is. He's going to be the lead pilot on this mission. And I was like, right, I'm back in straight away. I was like, they've done a thing where it looked like it wasn't going to make much sense logically, but it makes so much sense. And just everything about it. I think so. Dave said this to me, and I want to credit him. And it's a really good point. Tom Cruise action movies are their own genre, because nobody is a movie star in 2022 like Tom Cruise is a movie star. Like, everything about the way he is in a movie like this, just how he handles the dialogue, moments where he needs to be pensive, moments where he needs to be, aggressive, moments where he is emotional, moments where he needs to get everybody on side and have their sympathy. He's just so good at all of it. He can do anything. He's such a good actor. And I know, like, because of, his proclivities with certain religions and all sorts of weirdness in the public eye that he's been involved in for the last, 20, 25 years, that some people feel a certain way about him, which I can see, understand. But fuck me, Tom Cruise is the best movie star on the planet in a situation like this. Like, nobody would be able to pull this movie off. And not just because he was in the first Top Gun, but if this was just a movie about pilot dudes being trained by an older, charismatic pilot, there is no one on planet Earth that would be able to pull this role off with the conviction of Tom Cruise. He is fantastic. Like, I just could not help but root for him all the way through the movie. And there's so many scenes at the end where they're doing the mission and then the mission goes slightly askew. Are they going to manage to do it? I mean, spoiler alert, it's Tom Cruise. Of course he manages to do it somehow. And I found myself so genuinely emotionally invested in the thing where, despite the obvious lack of peril, knowing that Tom Cruise was going to come through with it, I still felt the feels when he did manage to pull off the mission, and he flew his plane in the Tom Cruisiest way possible. Yeah, Tom Cruise. That's all I got to say. What a movie.
I feel like that whole thing about the sort of public eye and Tom Cruise, I don't feel it's as extreme as it has been. You know, like I think back to the last couple of Mission Impossible films, and I don't recall that sort of nervousness that people may have had when talking about him and his antics. Like I feel like that was more in the last decade. I don't know. I don't exactly have my finger on the pulse of Tom Cruise, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I just feel like
good to not be fingering Tom Cruise, Mark.
I feel like that craziness doesn't feel as extreme as it once was.
I guess not. I guess maybe his private life, I suppose, isn't under as much of a microscope as it once was.
Certainly not this week.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So, yeah, exactly. You're not going to see that sort of thing play out between him and Katie Holmes in a court. But maybe that is helpful to him to just kind of keep out of the public eye. You know, the Scientology stuff is still around. You know, it feels like there's about 1 million documentaries on why Scientology is bad and a cult and all of this sort of stuff that you can access on the internet. But it doesn't really feature into it, I suppose, as much anymore. And he's not in a, like that weird relationship he had with Katie Holmes where he was all, lovesick and jumping around on Oprah's couch and stuff. It just doesn't really do that anymore. He now just focuses on, every once a year or so, or maybe twice a year, he just knocks out an absolute banger of a Tom Cruise performance and
with
people.
A couple of like absolute preposterous action sequences.
Yeah, exactly.
I was watching there was, I think it was an IGN clip there was like a 10-minute clip about the filming of this film and how Tom Cruise specifically, because like he can fly planes and he's trained up and stuff, and he basically, before they started production, he did a 3-month training course with the other actors and actresses with like the Navy and Top Gun, and had them doing bits where they were going underwater and having to escape these kind of carriages and going through G-force and that kind of stuff. And it's like, at what point are we going from fucking like doing a film to either just torturing these people or whatever else the case may be? And I want to see this film just because obviously the amount I'm, as I've said before, I think a number of times, I'm way more into practical effects and practical shooting than VFX and stuff. And
you will love this then. The last half an hour, the plane shots are incredible. Like, really good.
Just from that aspect alone, I'm really curious to see this film, just to see the way it's shot. And because I don't really give a fuck either way it's about A, Top Gun, or B, Tom Cruise, but just, the practical side of this film, that has me really interested. I got 2 questions. One for you, first of all, Jack. Is Val, like, I know Val Kilmer, obviously, the last couple of years, health-wise for him, has been pretty... traumatic to say the least. Like, is there any reference to him? Does he pop up in any way in this?
Val Kilmer is in the movie, yeah. Okay. I won't ruin his role in the movie, but it kind of wouldn't be right, I don't think, if he wasn't there, having ended that. But yeah, everybody that you kind of would want to see, I guess, that's still with us from the original Top Gun is referenced or in the movie in some way. So yeah, we get Val Kilmer.
Okay. And then I guess, Garrett, any interest in this at all?
I'll be seeing it tomorrow afternoon. And I am... There we go. I'm frankly rattled to my core after seeing this trailer like 9 million times. The idea that not only is it good, it's great, is like... I don't know what to do with myself. How did they do it? Tom Cruise... He's, as you said, put all aside the jumping on the Oprah's couch of it all, and you do get a dude who just cranks out good movies, and movies that are different from the kind of movies that are good these days. They are very much old school blockbusters that they don't really make anymore. Same with the Mission Impossible movies. And he is a net good in the world of filmmaking, which is very strange to say about Tom Cruise in 2022, but it's probably true.
It's insane how, like, you see so many of his sort of fellow action blockbustery actors have just fallen off the face of a cliff. Like, look at Bruce Willis versus Tom Cruise in 2022, for instance. Look at some of the absolute tripe that guy has finding himself in recently, and at one stage he was like an insanely bankable movie star. Or you've got, Will Smith gone crazy slapping comedians on stage, you know.
Or even
and before that, you had Gemini Man.
Yeah, or even like compare Bourne to Mission Impossible as like series trajectories.
Yeah. You know, I guess not all of that falls at the feet of Matt Damon, but still, it's.
And he's too busy selling crypto now, so you know, good for him.
What Matt Damon is he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What, like Boston crypto?
Have you not seen maybe it's just in the Cineworld I'm at, but he has a whole like crypto.com commercial playing before films.
Oh no, that is exclusively not in Cineworld in the UK, unfortunately for me, or fortunately I should probably say, because I don't need to tell him to tell me how it's wicked smart to be trading in crypto. I'm not interested in any of that. Yeah,
but yeah,
does he open his Bitcoin wallet and say, "How do you like these apples?"
No, he's in a fucking space station, and then at some point he looks out over the Earth and he's talking about how fortune favors the brave. All right,
and a great twist of irony that played before I saw The Matrix, which felt particularly fitting.
Excellent.
I mean, that is. Do you know what? The Matrix is less dystopian than Matt Damon in a crypto.com advert, I would say. That is horrifying.
Anyway, to drag this back, the thing with Tom Cruise, like as you mentioned there, it's the longevity, but also like you have actors and actresses that have long careers, but maybe there'll be a period where they're just not doing anything. Like, you know, Michael Keaton's been around forever, but there's a clear kind of gap where he's not doing anything. And I can't think of a time where Tom Cruise wasn't pumping out a film of, you know, of various quality, but he usually hits more highs than he hits lows anyway. There's not many like him. He's a maverick.
Oh, I just thought of one to link Jared Leto and Tom Cruise. So I was just looking through Jared Leto's Wikipedia. Willem Dafoe's in him in American Psycho, and Willem Dafoe's in the first John Wick's movie.
John Wick, yeah.
John Wick. Yeah, so there you go.
God bless Willem Dafoe.
There is only one, or I don't know, is that 2 degrees of separation? I guess, because you go from person to person, I don't know. But
I've never looked up the official ruling of the Richard Bacon 6 degrees.
the 6 degrees of Richard Bacon.
Or Kevin Bacon.
They're just all cocaine, I think, Mark, to be honest with you.
I always do that, Richard Bacon, Kevin Bacon. Anyway, I
love bacon, though.
Tom Cruise, Maverick, Top Gun, good stuff. Looking forward to seeing it at some point this week.
Honestly, dudes rock. That is what you need to know about this movie. Dudes rock.
Yeah, because as well, like I hadn't actually seen the trailer as many times as other people, but the few times that I did see it, I was like, all right.
Yeah, that is the thing about seeing that trailer that many times. It's not like there was an extended version of the trailer before. Was it Doctor Strange? And I was just like,
they did the whole thing where they were flying around. Yeah,
and I was just
got 8 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I watched that, and there was just like, it's fine. I'm not like this is terrible, but it does not have any impact on me whatsoever. And now to hear the movie is legitimately great. It is. I don't know what to do with myself.
Can't wait for Garrett to come here and tell me how it's 3 stars next week.
Hey, 3 stars is a good movie.
I'm going to go that this is at least a 4-star movie. I don't know if it's 4.5, but the way I felt when I came out of it, I can't, like, honestly, like a kid. It made me feel like a kid watching it. You know, when you watch a blockbuster movie when you're a kid and you don't have the same proclivity to question plot, and you know, you can just lose yourself in the fun action good times.
Yeah, that was me when I saw Twister as the first film at the cinema for me.
Yeah, exactly. You were just
love Twister.
You were just all in on what Helen Hunt had to be doing, chasing these tornadoes around.
Damn
and
right.
you could not give less of a shit. And that is exactly how I felt during this movie. It's not that it even requires you to switch off your brain, but I did switch off my brain a little bit anyway. And I was like, Tom Cruise is amazing. I love Tom Cruise. Like an absolute child.
On the flip side of that, what was the first film, Mark, that you were smart enough to know, or like not dumb child enough to know was actually bad by the time you walked out of it?
Oh, when he became a smart Mark, if you will.
It was probably... oh God, what was that sort of like spiritual successor to Jumanji?
Jumanji 2?
Jumanji, I was going to say Jumanji the next level.
No, it began with Z. It was...
Zoomanji?
No.
Zoolander?
It definitely wasn't Zoolander.
Oh, okay.
This is gonna
because I came out of that and I was like, well, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. Wake me up before you go, Mark.
And also, mine was Babe Pig in the City, by the way. We buried the shit out of that film on the way home.
I would imagine so. Zephora, that's what it was called.
Zephora?
Yeah.
Isn't that like an online lingerie store?
No, it is basically as like Jumanji in space, and it's directed by Jon Favreau, actually. But it's fucking dreadful. That was 2005. I didn't actually see a lot of films between, like, when I first saw Twister, which was what, 95, 96? Like, the only other films I remember seeing between them was like fucking X-Men.
Is that because you saw Twister and you were like, oh, I mean, it just does, it's
peak of cinema.
Yeah, it's not getting any better than this. I'm twisting it up, baby, for the rest of my life. Nice.
What about you, Jack?
I don't know.
Jack has never hated a movie.
Yeah, I do hate movies sometimes, or I do think movies are bad, but the ones I actively remember thinking this is kind of bad is a tough question for me, because I was always just, when I was a kid, like, and I had a movie on a VHS tape or something, that's how old I am now, which makes me shudder a little bit. I'd just play it over and over again, like, regardless of the quality of the movie, just because I had maybe 10 or 12 VHS tapes.
That's how you get the phenomenons like the Star Wars prequel trilogy becoming actually good, because that's what happens with all of our entertainment as kids. We just watch the same things over and over again, and then have nostalgia for them and cannot accept that they are perhaps bad.
I think, so if I'm going to go with Star Wars, like, the first one I saw and thought, large parts of this are absolute gobshite, is probably Attack of the Clones. When I watched Phantom Menace in 1999, I would have been, when it came out, 11 years old. So, to me, it wasn't that bad. And as I got older and kind of understood and then rewatched it, I'm like, yeah, this ain't great.
You know, my film for that is Hook, because I loved Hook as a child, and then I watched it many, many years later, and I was like, some of the performances are okay, but this is not a good film.
Yeah, John Williams' music is trying to do a lot of heavy lifting in that movie.
John Williams is great.
Even Spielberg admits that movie sucks. It's one of the ones he's like, oh, I'd like it back.
It kind of feels like it kind of feels like a theatre production in some ways, with like a lot of the set pieces and stuff.
I think Robin Williams is the reason most people like that movie.
Yeah.
Like,
he's the reason most people like most movies, to be fair.
He's like, fantastic in that movie.
Fucking 10 out of 10 for me. Yeah,
which is, Flubber is poor. Like, I remember seeing Flubber years later and I was like, oh my god, this is awful.
Even Shooter McGavin can't save that.
Yeah. See, Happy Gilmore I would watch once a year for the rest of my life and still find it really funny because I'm a child, and when he punches Bob Barker, it's very funny. But yeah, I think Attack of the Clones probably is one of the first movies. I don't remember actively disliking. Do you know what I actively disliked? And it was only because I was kind of forced to watch them. Carry On movies. They are so awful.
I've never seen, every so often, not even every so often, it's like every third episode of The Chase, there's a question about the Carry On movies. And I'm like, I don't even have a cultural awareness point for these. It's just, they're so British, apparently.
I mean, so like they were one of the 95 fucking versions of that film, or that, you know, franchise or whatever, would be on daytime television like every other week. So I've never seen one in whole. I've only seen, 5 minutes of bits and pieces, but things that have not aged well or are clearly a product of their time, Carry On films would be high up that list.
Lots of comedy doesn't age well, and they are just so bad. The thing is, it's because the whole film is basically the Todd from Scrubs, or like Quagmire from Family Guy, right? The whole thing is just innuendo, and innuendo humor is really boring. However,
and it's as base level as you can get with it. Absolutely,
but I suppose in the 60s, when this sort of stuff wasn't really on TV, and you've got like 2 or 3 channels, if there's a joke about, oh, that's a lovely pair, and then Barbara Windsor emerges in a bikini top, it's probably the funniest thing you've ever heard as like a 14-year-old boy, because you're not getting that humor elsewhere. But yeah,
it is kind of astonishing, and it's not to say the humor is completely derived from that. But it is kind of amazing that Austin Powers was successful as it was, because it's of that era in terms of obviously what it's invoking. I haven't seen the Austin Powers films in fucking God knows how long, and I'd be super curious to see if they've aged particularly well.
I'm not even sure if I've seen all of the Austin Powers. Is one of those things that I've absorbed through cultural osmosis, but I'm not sure I've actually seen.
I think they've aged well. I think that first Austin Powers movie that I watched, because I think, so there's a film critic me and Dave watch called Patrick H. Willems, and he'll do like critical analyses of various bits and pieces, and go back into different movie threads or whatever of bits and pieces from the past. And he did one on Austin Powers, and it made me go back and rewatch them all. And I think the second and third one are kind of a bit shit, but that first Austin Powers movie genuinely still made me laugh, still made me chuckle. It isn't a Carry-On movie. Like, there is more sophisticated levels to the humor in it.
Well, that's part of the reason it was, likely more successful, is that it was doing slightly more than what a Carry-On film ever could.
Yeah, but Carry-On movies are all just shocking. They're just awful. And my dad would enjoy it because, he's a man who's like 60 this year, and, that's what he watched when he was a teenage boy and thought it was funny. So therefore, he would have them on TV and he'd be laughing or whatever, and, I'd just be cringing myself.
Pretty much the same thing with my grandparents. I've more than one occasion ran into that situation.
And I get the feeling and a genuine worry that were I ever to have a child, I would put on a film that I think was really funny, and they would also cringe and think it was terrible. And
imagine if you had a child and they didn't like Happy Gilmore.
I mean, it wouldn't be as traumatic as if they didn't like Morbius. I mean, that would be... I don't know what... Garrett, do you feel like adoption...
Thumbs up for that one. I enjoyed that one.
Do you feel like adoption would probably be the only recourse in that situation?
That's too kind. I just locked them out.
Yeah,
fend for yourself, outside. Child.
Yeah, maybe give them a slice of toast and then send them on their way with a bindle as well.
Give them a bit of garlic so they can fend off the outside Morbii, but that's all they can do.
Yeah, don't come back until you're either A, a Morbius, or B, enjoy Morbius, or C, both.
So anyway, that was Top Gun Maverick.